work that needs to be done to allow safe, I presume that safety is the main factor, the trucks entering and leaving Highway 2, those trucks extend it directly from the forest, or are they entering Highway 2 from an existing public road? And what's likely to be the cost?
Oh, look, I'm sorry, I don't know the operational details around that. I have to find out that out for you, Councillor.
Councillor Scott.
Yes, the plan changes, Mr Chairman, a good and a bad. We've got a regional coastal environment plan still waiting to be made operative, and it has been sitting there now for something like 8 months in the in-tray. No sign of that. It's no wonder plans take so long when they just get buried in somebody's in-tray for a final sign-off. So no progress on that at all.
No progress, and I guess I'm honest, we haven't pushed that with the other work that's happening, because there's once we get that approval, then there's a lot of administration work to do with the plan change. But we can certainly follow that up and just give it a push.
However, Mr Chairman, just to check, although it is not fully operative, having not been signed off by the Minister, it has been now for almost a year beyond any appeal. So in effect, it is. Yeah, operative. Yeah. And the plan change around the built environment looks as if it's heading to resolution within months of being heard. Is this an all-time record for a plan change?
I would imagine so. Without going back, I would imagine so. For us, anyway.
Further questions? Further questions? Someone happy to move that we accept that? Councillor Scott. Councillor McGregor, you wish to speak? Councillor Scott. Councillor McGregor. The other speakers? Put that motion, then all those in favour please say aye. Against? Carried. Okay, right.
Yeah, who's the screen gone?
I don't know, I need to figure that out.
While we get the screen up, if you could go to page 113, Council's Water Management Framework under Drought Conditions Report. Mr Maxwell.
So through you, Mr Chair, what we're proposing to do is we've got a presentation which will be up shortly that between Liz, myself and Helen will step you through. There's a couple of points of clarification I'd just like to make to the paper, and then we're happy to take questions.
Okay.
Right, thank you, Mr Chairman. Councillors, if I can make a start. Now, the genesis of this paper has really been around responding or clarifying what both councillors and council staff have responded to in the way of concerns raised, particularly over the drought earlier this year, and particularly, I have to say, around particular geographical area being the Twyford area. But I think it's important that we just take 5 minutes or so just to really set the scene, because any response that's made by council is not done in an ad hoc way or in isolation from all the other factors that are happening, and to understand the water management framework and what we operate within, I think is an important part of the context of any discussion that results from this particular paper. I think most, if not all of you, will be aware of broadly the major catchments that are within Hawke's Bay, and certainly this paper really does focus around the Naurororo, so the light blue one. But in terms of the management, I think it's clear that it's the region can be divided really into north and south, and this is based on both surface and groundwater allocation status, not just surface water as it's titled there. But you can see quite clearly the red right through the middle, from the Esk catchment and the Turakuri catchment south, right through to the Tukituk. Those are areas that are currently fully or over allocated in terms of the amount of water that is available for take and use. You see we have some issues, very light, small ones in the Esk, and certainly no problems with availability of water up in the northern part of the region, and in fact down in the very south, either in Parongaho as well. So that's really, it's important that people can actually visualise that when we're going through the context of talking about our response. And then another factor that we need to talk about, and I know climate change has been mentioned today, and we do have information that we base our work around, and that includes the projected mean annual change in rainfall in the 50 years from 1980-99 through to 2030-2049. And you can see quite clearly that all along the east coast of the North Island, and certainly within probably 50 metres or 50 kilometres of the coastline as far as Hawke's Bay is concerned, quite significant projected reduction in rainfall. So we're having to look at how we're going to factor that into water management going forward as well. So the challenge that we actually have plenty of water. You only got to look out the window today or in the drive here today to know that it's not always a problem. But the key thing is it's not always in the right place at the right time when it's needed the most in terms of when it has its highest value. And as I've already pointed out in the previous slide, there is a long-term drying trend that has to be factored in. So where you see the red, the fully or over-allocated, that's only likely to expand rather than to contract that particular area. The other key point I'd like to highlight on this slide is the bottom one. The traditional planning instruments that we have to operate under lack flexibility when dealing with change. I mean, Councillor Scott just asked Ms Codlin about was that a record for a plan change? Yes, it probably was, but you can almost guarantee that any plan change that's going to involve changes to minimum flows or water qualities will take a lot longer to deal with. And so where our responsiveness is constrained, if you like, by that particular approach that we operate under and have to operate under. So just to give you some further context around that, we have our regional resource management plan, and in that we have a table of minimum flows for all the waterways where we have takes from. These set environmental bottom lines. The Council has said in its RRMP and in other documents as well that it's here to protect the environment for a range of reasons. It could be aquatic habitat, it could be for recreational use, etc. But those reasons and those figures in that plan have all been set through community engagement and the public submission process. So it's not something that's just been dreamed up around this table and let's stick it out there. It's actually gone through, in some cases, quite protracted public submission process. That plan was operative in 2006. It had been notified in 2000. That's how long it took. So again, it's something that's had the public submission process in it. Since then, there's been other developments at a national level, and there's a couple I've just highlighted there for you. One is the National Policy Statement for Freshwater Management, which was issued in 2011, and that requires anyone with water management functions, and for this particular aspect it's regional councils, to set limits around both water quantity and water quality. Traditionally, I think most of us have, particularly those of us on the east coast of both islands, been pretty good at setting limits around quantity. Now we also have to set limits around quality. The other development at a national level since 2010, and really only concluding a few months ago, has been the Land and Water Forum, which itself is very much a collaborative process of stakeholders from all across New Zealand with interests in land and water management, and itself has recommended that freshwater management approaches be developed through a collaborative process with all the interested stakeholders in any particular catchment or subcatchment being involved in going through in getting some agreement that then gets fed back through to the formal RMA process. So in Hawke's Bay we have our land and water strategy, and that was, I think, adopted last year by Council, but it was certainly had been about 12 months in the preparation. I think the key thing to remember from that is that that's water strategy has prioritised and recommends a tailoring of catchment responses. So again, going back to that, that over-allocation versus fully allocated versus under-allocated map, there will be different responses required depending on the particular physical situation and demands in a catchment. And the other thing that the strategy also identifies for each of those catchments is a hierarchy of needs. But we actually need water in the rivers to be able to meet those needs. So ongoing, we have, as an example, the Turakuri, Ahuriri, Ngātaroro and Karamu stakeholder process that is looking at those 4 sub-catchments which, broadly speaking, make up the greater Ahuriri and Hiratonga area. And so the whole idea of that is that goes through a process of identifying community values, what's most important to the community. It looks at how those values could best be addressed. But it's really important that everyone that's in this room and those outside of this room also understand that although that kind of process, it takes time, effort, energy and expense. It's not necessarily, or it isn't, it can't come up with a really quick fix if it's going to meet all the tests around community input. I'm not going to certainly go through this. I know it looks a bit busy, but it's I think it's important just to it really just highlights the different approaches that can be taken, again, coming back to whether or not a catchment's fully allocated or not. If it's not fully allocated, you can take that individual approach on the left. So we've got enough water to be able to meet the needs of consent holders and prospective consent holders, and that's largely today where we're at as a region. Where we're trying to get to, though, is down below on the left-hand side, this community approach to water use and water management. So we're looking there at, first of all, at shared efficiency gains, and we're looking at collective or group consents, whatever you'd like to terminology you'd like to use. And if those efficiency gains and or group consents are not enough, then we'd look at obviously more expensive options as well, such as infrastructure. But basically, our current water management is based on a hierarchy of responses. And if I could just finish my bit by summing up where we see that hierarchy or those different range of responses right now. On the Tukituk, in that catchment, we're looking at water storage. On the broad Hiratonga Plains, community water use efficiency. So that's more global consents or grouping of consents. In the Ngātaroro, and I'm talking here about the main stem of the river as opposed to the wider catchment, we'd be looking again at water use efficiency and potentially storage. And that, as you'll all be aware, the pre-feasibility has been done for that. In Wairoa and the hinterland of the region, the first in, first serve option still works fine. There's still plenty of water. The demand can be met with the first in, first serve process. And community water use efficiency is going to be a good encouragement for people, irrespective of the perceived plentifulness of the water. So really that's just setting the scene region-wide for you. And Ian's just going to go through now and I guess address in more detail the paper that's in front of you.